Hello and welcome to the Cybrary Intruder Alert. This is our episode 2, and we do record live on Wednesdays every 2 weeks. We're currently trying to do a dual. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I'm streaming from my phone on Instagram, and then we're also doing the main Cybrary podcast. So it's kind of a new setup, and it's a little confusing. But yeah, so we are going to be recording all episodes live. So if you want to throw us any questions in the chat, please feel free to. And I'm here with Will, who is going to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. It's great to be on. So, my first iteration of the new skinning of the podcast. It's great to have you hosting. Thanks so much. I'm Cybrary Senior Director of Content. I came to the platform years and years ago now. Not that many years ago, I guess. I'm not that old. As a learner, I've been in IT and cybersecurity for over 15 years in this small to medium business space. Think financial institutions and local credit unions. So I had all the fun that was all those regulations to deal with. But I've been here at Cybrary and my role as a director of content for a number of years now. And, I guess interesting fact about me, in my free time, I'm a opera singing martial artist when I'm not doing cybersecurity. So
Oh wow, that is incredible. So are those two separate things? You opera sing and martial arts, or is it like one and the same?
I don't know that I've ever done them at the same time, but that probably feels like something that should be done
Because
eventually.
that's what was playing in my head. I'm just imagining you fighting people while singing opera, and I was like, that would be a really good act.
Yeah, just let them have it while I'm singing them some old opera faves, right? Oh,
Someone
geez.
on Instagram asked if you can sing for us.
Maybe we'll see how the show goes along.
Yeah, I'm getting like it won't let me mute the live on my phone, so I'm getting like a little bit of feedback. It'll let me turn the volume down to 1, but it won't go lower than that. So I don't know if you can hear it on your end, but it should be okay.
I can. I've got my phone is down as far as it'll go, and my mic's not picking it up, so I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So I think the first topic is red and blue teaming. So I guess a quick intro to what that is. There's a lot of different iterations of red and blue teaming, but the fundamental idea is you have your blue team, which is your security team, which is to try and stop hackers from getting into the organization's network. And then the red team's job is to play the role of the hacker, trying to get into the network. But I've seen a lot of weird twists where I've seen companies that have red teams without blue teams. It's like, we want you to hack us, but we're not going to actually try and stop you. But I guess the fundamental core version is you have your own internal blue team, and then you either contract a red team to come and play the hackers, or some organizations even have both.
That's definitely the model that I've seen a heck of a lot more, right? So it's interesting to hear that you've run into companies that have a red team but no blue team. I mean, I suppose I guess if they were sending their blue team work to a managed services security provider like MSSP, maybe that makes some sense. But definitely the model that I've seen a lot more is companies will have a core blue team function, or at least somebody anchoring that, even if they have an MSSP. And typically, a red team is a sign of a much more mature cybersecurity organization, and typically a larger budget and a larger team.
Yeah, that's the standard. I've seen some crazy iterations. So I believe you come from the red teaming side. Is that correct?
No, I can't say that I do. I'm one of the boring ones. I come from the IT and the blue team side.
Oh, so you're blue team. So
Yeah.
tell us a bit about, I guess, your past in blue teaming, and what do you think of it?
Yeah. So in my past, I had the privilege, I guess, to be on. I said earlier, small to medium business space, right? So these are the folks that, particularly in financial services, like your local credit union, has all the same regulations that Chase and Wells Fargo and the big banks do. And I promise you, they have the same budget and the same security team size. They totally do not. So that meant that I got the privilege of doing a little bit of everything. Like, we were the really small SEAL team that got to do it all, right? We like to joke that if it plugged into the wall, it was ultimately our problem to make sure, one, that it worked, and two, that it was secure. I kid you not, I got a phone call one day about, hey, the cable TV in the office isn't working.
That's a
Okay,
very important security thing.
not my problem. You go take care of that with the cable provider. Thanks so much. But yeah, through all of that, I guess, to circle back, I was involved in all walks of life. So I've my turn on help desk. I've done my turn on implementing and selecting solutions. I've done my turn at the budgeting side of it, the policy side of it, the rolling out of security enablement, and a security awareness program, which we all love to hate. I've done a little bit of all of that, all the way up to being the one that's looking at the SIM for a small financial institution and having to, kind of call in the guards when things were above my head, which thankfully in my career, they were not very often. I think maybe a topic for another day, fundamentally because we did some of the simple things, right? Like keep your stuff patched, least privilege, like do the things you need to do. It certainly does pay a lot of benefit. So I hang my hat on that. I didn't have any really nasty incidents to respond to, thankfully, but I certainly know the world of alert fatigue on and amongst everything else on the blue team. And then let alone you have folks like Marcus and red teamers coming in to make your life a little bit miserable. Not really. They're certainly there to help.
Oh no,
But alert fatigue is real.
I definitely think I make the miserable happen. Yeah, going back to the patching thing, like that's one of the most simple rudimentary things, and the amount of organizations that get it wrong are crazy. Like I see a lot of people who are like fixating on these zero-day exploits, and they're like, we need to build a system to patch against zero-day exploits. And you're like, do you have the latest version of Windows? Like, do you have a Windows version within the past 5 years? And they're like, no, we got to focus on the 0 days.
Yeah, do you have any it's a simple things like in the CIS 18 now, used to be 20, but, like, there's a reason there's 18 of them and not more, 'cause 1, 18's enough, and 2, like, it starts with having an inventory of all your machines, which sounds like a really easy thing to cross off a list, but I've been there, right? Like, it's a lot harder than it looks, to your point.
No,
Um,
I've actually, I have a friend who made like a very, very successful company over just, we will tell you what computers you have.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been in a situation where you've been at an organization and you've run a network scan and you say, "Look, and see all these things that are here," and they go like 80% of it, they don't even know what is.
Yeah.
It is really challenging, to be fair. And to your point, though, patching is a pretty simple thing to do, but until you roll it out of the enterprise scale with a bunch of legacy applications, and then that's what causes things like, I was looking at Mandiant Advantage just the other day, and the top 5 exploited CVEs in the last month, none of them are new. They're all
Yeah.
old. The top one was still Log4j.
To be honest, Log4j is a hard one. But yeah, like I used to be very much on the side of, oh my god, like how could these organizations not have patched these vulnerabilities? And then I was on an org's network, and you basically sneeze in the direction of the network, and the whole thing just falls over. And it's like the tiniest change in the operating system will just blow up the entire network. And they like, and then I've actually seen like legitimate Microsoft patches where it just like breaks the network. It's like they missed some edge case, and installing the patch will just kill your entire network. And then now I'm like, honestly, how is it we can't do patching yet? Like, it's not the organization's fault. I think it's like more on the patching side.
And I know nobody wants to be the IT or cybersecurity professional that rolls out a critical patch and breaks a critical line of business application and has a CEO or the sales manager knocking on their door saying, "You've got to bring my systems back up and you've got to do it now."
Yeah, that's an absolute nightmare. Like I've had a couple because I used to do patch analysis, so I would reverse engineer the patch and actually try and make exploits for the recently patched vulnerabilities. And I had a lot of cases where I installed the patch to test, and it just bricked my system. And I'm like, well, thank God I'm not an organization, because this is annoying, but it's not billions of dollars of financial loss annoying.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits, honestly, Marcus, that I had at a small business. I think one of the struggles that they have is just a lack of qualified staff to do some of these functions. But beyond that, once you get a qualified person, they can really batten on the hatches and secure things a lot. Because for a smaller business, you're a lot less likely to have those legacy applications. You're a lot more likely, for better or for worse, to have more SaaS and cloud-based applications. But it's easier to keep things patched because there's just a lot less to break than an enterprise 10,000 people organization has to deal with legacy applications built on Fortran. It does
Yeah.
get complicated.
I think the worst ones I've seen are the industrial control systems,
Mm.
because a lot of those applications, they only run on, uh, best case XP. Like, it'll be, "This application does not work on any OS above XP," and of course, they're not rolling out patches for XP at all. You might get, like, a very critical one they'll make an out of bounds patch for, but for the most part, like it is not possible to patch at all. And I think I went on like got to look firsthand at one of those networks, and oh my god, was it scary!
Well, and then you've got all these PLCs that are so light, they can't really run anything. Like, they're running as much code as they possibly can just to perform that one function, and then we thought it was in our infinite wisdom, we wanted to plug them all up to the internet because we need to be able to manage them remotely. They
Yeah,
they were never intended for that, right? So we've just made this huge attack surface for a thing that you can't really put anything additional on, but it's connected, to your point, to a controller that's running on Windows XP, and that's all it's for. It's a mess.
yeah. I think the most interesting one I saw was it was in Ukraine, I think about 2016 or something, maybe a bit earlier. They actually got onto the PLCs that controlled the power plants, and they just overwrote the firmware, and they were able to send a remote command to disconnect the substation and then just completely erase the device.
Mm. Yeah, and if they brick it right, there's no replacement other than replacing it.
Yeah, like it you just have to physically replace it. I think that's what they actually had to do. They had to
Mm.
bring out engineers to physically replace the devices.
Yeah, it's you get into the world of industrial control systems and things, and it's a whole new level of interesting because I mean, again, I think those systems really weren't meant to be network connected, and now we've
Nope.
network connected them all up. So, I think that's a big part of where we're at too. Like you mentioned, why is it so hard to why can't we just get patching right? I think I am definitely old enough to know the how fast things have moved. Like, we have come leaps and bounds. Like, the internet and technology has enabled so much so quickly, and we did all of these things in service of this cool, neat thing that it allows us to do. And, just chronologically, cybersecurity didn't become a thing until many, many years after the internet and all these internet-worked computers were a thing. We're playing catch up in a big way with systems that were never really designed to have security considered from the ground up. It's hard work.
Oh, absolutely. And it feels like every time we release like a new class of computer, it just resets. Like I remember the big like when IoT became a thing, they're like, we're gonna put computers in your fridge. And then they just forgot all of the cybersecurity we've learned in the past like 2 decades. And they're just putting like, hey, it's a bare bones Linux box with no controls.
It's tough too, right? I think that's a really interesting one from a business perspective, that slowing down to consider cybersecurity is a real measurable cost. Like, every day that I don't go to market as the first person with a smart fridge, because Lord knows everybody needs a smart fridge that tells you whether or not you need to go pick up eggs and milk on your way home. Ah, um, but every day that you don't get that product to market, it costs, and those are costs that business people understand. But when
Yeah,
you
that's
say
the
there's a
thing.
chance that it might be compromised and you might have angry customers and you might have litigation, that yeah, whatever.
I
Prove
mean,
it.
it's to be honest, not a real cost. Like I've seen very few cases where anyone has like suffered any financial liability for making insecure products. So I
Yep.
guess like speaking to the red team side, do you do any like have you done any red teaming? Have you seen any interesting red teaming?
I definitely have. We have, your previous guest, not a ton, but some, but your previous guest, member of our team here at Cybrary as well, Matt Mullins, lovingly referred to as our chief thief or n number of other names, our adversary emulator. We talk about these kinds of things an awful lot, and you know, there's a lot of love in that community for IoT devices that are in organizations, especially the ones that people don't know that are there. Another one that we love to hear about, I think, is the one that IT people hate: printers.
Oh.
I've never met a printer as an IT person that I liked, and as a cybersecurity person, I feel the same way and probably more. Like, I'm sure and have run into a Marcus, but how many printers keep locally cached storage of the last 100 copies that they made?
Yeah, they're terrible. I seem to remember there was an attack a while back. I don't remember the guy's name, but he had a giraffe avatar, and he found some kind of open printer vulnerability. So he was just printing like these. I think it was security notes or something. He would just print out something that like told you like you need to secure your printer, which technically illegal, but I think it's a lot better than the realistic cases. Someone could get into your printer and then pivot into the organization. I've seen it happen with mostly either firewalls or IoT, like the IoT routers or the NVRs. they'll just set them on the internet and it's connected to the same network as the main systems. And someone will get into that device, they'll pivot into the network, and it's game over.
That's because network segmentation is hard.
I'm gonna be honest, I know a lot about cybersecurity, but I haven't figured that one out yet.
It is really well, but yeah, printers are not a lot of fun for cybersecurity people. And again, I mean, as those printers get smarter and smarter, they do more and more and more, and many of them run Linux under the hood. Like, oh boy, default passwords, totally unpatched, got all kinds of information on it. To your point, it sits on the exact same network as everything else does. In a lot of cases, it's probably connected to a print server, which who knows what else that's going to be connected to. They're tons of fun to get into and pivot from.
Oh, I can imagine. I've not had the chance to mess with them yet, but it's something I really wanna play with. Actually, on a similar topic, we have our next segment, which is, some places are making laws requiring, companies to disclose breaches, because it's pretty normal for companies to just sweep the breach under the rug. They don't really want the PR damage, and any fines for GDPR or similar laws is not really that much compared to the amount of reputational damage from a breach.
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting, and it's one of those that, as salty cybersecurity people, it's easy to say that we know best. And I think, I come at this in a lot of ways because of my, again, small business leanings. Like, I had to be on the business side of a lot of these decisions too, and saw the immediate ramifications of some of those decisions. Like, it's really easy to say that everybody should disclose everything, but I think as cybersecurity professionals, we can even put ourselves in a position to realize that there are times when that's not the best thing to do. When as a business or a cybersecurity decision maker do you decide that it is something even worth disclosing? And I'm not saying that organizations are doing a good job. I think there's plenty of examples that we can point to and say, oh, nice of you not to have disclosed that because that was certainly a security incident. But when it's early in the event, early in the incident, when do you report? What do you report? How long do you give your team to get their hands around it before you responsibly disclose an event? Like, there's a lot of complications in all of that. I think companies don't have good playbooks around that. They haven't even thought through those eventualities. And I think as with a lot of cybersecurity, they're going to figure it out when it happens instead of figuring it out in advance, which certainly contributes to it. But even if you have all the playbooks figured out, it can still be a really hard thing to do to know when to appropriately disclose. So I think some of this legislation is on point. Companies need to be doing a better job of that. They need to have policies about it. They probably should have done a tabletop exercise to prepare for it. But a lot of this legislation is written by people, if I can be so forward, that don't know much about cybersecurity.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's the big thing, is it's very easy to say, like, sweeping a breach under the rug is bad, let's not do that. But pretty much hit every single point. When do you disclose the breach? What constitutes a breach? Like, I actually think I've seen, like, arguments in cybersecurity where we can't actually, like, hone in on what actually constitutes a breach. Is, someone being able to scrape email addresses a breach? Like, is an API leak a breach? But I think the really big problem is a lot of the time, you're still investigating what happened. Like, A, were you even breached? B, how did they get in? Is tipping the attacker off going to cause harm?
mm,
And I think I've even seen ones where the attacker has exploited like a very new undisclosed issue. And by disclosing the breach and said issue, it could lead to other organizations suffering the same fate. So it's a really complex field. And I think you're right in the people writing these laws, they're not cybersecurity professionals. They don't know what dealing with a breach is like. So it's going to be, I imagine it'll be very cut and dry. You get X amount of days to disclose the breach, and it's probably not going to be enough.
I'm sure you've probably seen some of the videos, like from the House and Senate floor here in the United States, where Sundar Pichai of Google is being grilled about a thing. It's like, can you? I'd show you my phone, but we're streaming from it too. But can you or can you not track my location with my phone? And it's like, where do I even start to explain to this gentleman or lady what the internet is, how it works, and the fact that they clicked yes, allow tracking my location anytime this app is in use. Like,
I think I saw one where it was, I think it might have been the same segment. He's holding up the phone and he's like, "Can Google track my location," and he looks at the phone, he goes, "Sir, that's an iPhone, that's, made by a different company."
That's the sa
The guy just,
that
like
is
and
the
you
same
just
segment. Oh, I love it.
yeah,
It's so funny.
and
It's
you can
funny,
just
but
see
it's
him,
not
like,
funny.
staring at his phone, and he's like, "Is it?"
It is. It's really, really bad. And it's super tough, right? So you know, I try to see both sides of issues like this because I think there's valid arguments to be made on both sides. And I think one of the best things that we can do as cybersecurity professionals is just to find ways to be involved in the discussion. But disclosing too soon to your point is a problem. Legislators making rules about things that they don't understand is certainly a problem, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be doing it either, right? Because I know there are a lot of organizations that unless they're compelled to do a thing, they won't do it. Like some of my background is, don't give me the hook and haul me off the show, but some of my background is um, in PCI compliance. Which until you get really large, much larger, and you have to have an outside assessor come in, a lot of the work that you do on PCI is self-attestation. Like you're saying, "Yep, this 47-page document, I fully understand which of the requirements need to apply to me. I've either got them all covered or I have compensating controls for all of them. I'm all good." And you could just say, "I'm all good," year after year after year. Another problem that you run into there is people say, "Oh, I have a vendor, they take care of that for me."
Yeah,
Well, do
I
you
think I've
know
seen
about
it
their
with
solution? Did you hook it up to a different network than they initially hooked it up to? And they don't know. They know they bought a secure solution, and there are vendors that sell a secure solution knowing that it's ultimately not up to them because the security is on the person that purchased it. So it
yeah, I
gets
think
really
I've
tough,
seen
like
a couple of, I think it was maybe pen tests or red team where they deliberately set the scope to be impossible. It's like you can't actually touch any of the network, and it's just a check in the box for the compliance.
yeah, it's just an interesting one. I see we got a question from Instagram, like, what are our thoughts on disclosing breaches in major infrastructure like that of airlines? Like, I have an
I th
opinion here real quick. I know when the latest, airline FAA systems went down for a little while here in the United States. Like I was talking with some folks that I know, like my opinion, it's just that it's an opinion. I don't think we'll ever really know. Like they said it was a system outage or a misconfiguration, if I remember. There's probably a high likelihood that it was something more than that, and it may have been a nation state actor that did it. I don't think they're ever going to tell us.
no.
And that's a little different maybe because that's a federal agency. So they should follow the same rules, but they probably don't. Um, I don't know that we'll ever know what really happened in those situations, and it's probably going to be protected under national security as the reason, which may be well founded. It may not, and again, I don't know that we'll know until those records are unsealed a number of years later. But FAA is an interesting case to me, kind of a exception to the rule. But curious what you think
Yeah.
about that, Marcus.
I definitely lean towards, like, do we even need to know? Like, is it important that we need to know? Because we did that with SolarWinds, and oh my god, the reaction to SolarWinds was people were like, "We need to bomb Russia," and I was like, "Please no, let's it's cyber, it's not serious." And I feel like people do get a little scared, especially when it's critical infrastructure, like the Colonial Pipeline shutdown, solar winds, those kind of attacks. They send the general public into a frenzy, and I've noticed that in a lot of cases, it actually causes more harm than good.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, and it's who needs to know? I think is another good question, right? Do we, the general public, which I think is what you were asking, do we all need to know that that happened? I don't know. Like, what are we going to do about it?
Exactly.
It's not going to change my day. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing actionable for me than to your point, than to get in a tizzy about it. But I do think there are some people that should know, right? Those that are going to be trying to do something about it, they need to be aware of those kinds of things, but probably not the entire public. Now, if it's, I don't know, maybe I may not have a popular opinion here, but like if it's a company that had an incident that had my data, I certainly want to know, but I don't really want to know honestly until they're sure that it was mine. Like,
Mm,
should I really be concerned or not? Because I'll admit at this point, Marcus, I'm a little bit tone deaf to it all. Like,
yeah.
I think it's safe for all of us to assume that your data's out there. Like, you probably need to have all your credit reports locked at all times. You probably need to only unlock them when you plan on actually going to use them. Like, this is probably just going to be, whether we like it or not, just where we're at. We're kind
Yeah,
of pawns in the game.
100% agree with that feeling. in my job, because I work threat intelligence, I not only see the public breaches, but the ones that don't get disclosed, the ones that get quietly shared around on hacker forums without anyone noticing. And I've got to the point where it's like I could look up my credit card details in any of a number of breaches, and it's like I simply don't care anymore. It's impossible to keep caring when it's just breach after breach after breach.
It's a funny one. Like I like that you mentioned credit card numbers because a comment that I always a thought experiment that I like to do with people when they say, "Well, oh, I don't use my credit card online; it's not secure." And I was like, "Okay, well then, how do you pay your bills?"
That's a
Check.
good point.
Okay, well, how do you get those checks to the people that you owe the money to? Well, I mail it, obviously. Okay, well, how do you do? Well, I go out and they get mad that I'm pushing. Well, I go out in front of my house and I put the mail in the box and I raise the little flag. And I was like, oh, so you signal to anybody that happens by that there are checks in your mailbox. Well, so I was like, okay, all they have to do is take that check out of the mailbox. And even if they don't want to wash it, which is a topic for another day, and spend it as if it's had your signature on it, because they keep that on there, they just wash the rest off. They've got your banking and your routing number. And how many places can they go buy things online with an ACH number?
Yeah, I
Your
think a lot
banking and
of
routing.
cases you can see the details on the check by just holding the envelope up to the light. Like,
Because they don't use security anymore. It's
yeah,
like it is so funny how easy it is for us to think that there's this security theater. Like we think things are secure that really are not, just because that's how it's always been. Like the mail in your mailbox is not necessarily secure. The mail carrier can take it. There are a number of things that could happen. Well, it's never happened to me. Oh, so what? You know,
yeah,
I've had my credit card number compromised a couple of times, but not often. And I've used them for years. So like the percentage of transactions that are more okay than are not is many more of them are fine than are not. But I'm sure my numbers are running around there, to your point.
I
It,
think the problem is I don't look into my bills deeply enough that I would have no idea if any of my accounts had ever been compromised.
oh, careful. That might sound like a call out. That is not a challenge accepted moment on the podcast, everybody. Please do not. But Marcus did just say he wouldn't know. So yeah, but no, back to the point about the legislation. I think it's a tough one, right? Like, I think we have to do something. I think a lot of companies are going to have to be compelled to do something, or they're just going to try to quietly brush it under the rug. And there needs to be accountability there, I think, more than anything. And for me, it's not, hold their feet to the fire. And, I care less about monetary punishment, only to the point that if that's what it takes to make organizations take security seriously and get better, then let's do what we have to do. But again, we have people writing those rules that don't understand the reality on the ground. So it's just tough.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue. Like, if you are struggling to understand cybersecurity, we do have some free courses on Cybrary.it. So if you're a legislator or just a regular person, sign up to Cybrary and get some free courses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, all of this conversation, like cybersecurity is not about to be a out of demand field. And I know there's a lot of conversation about that too, right? Well, oh, what about AI? What about machine learning? And again, probably another topic. I know you and Matt kind of dipped into that a little bit last time, but I don't see the human element going away. Machines are really good at repeatable tasks, predictable tasks, and
Mm,
AI certainly helps with some creativity in those machines, but they're still learning from what they've been taught and the models that they've been trained on. And I don't personally believe that AI is at a place where it replaces the creativity and the on the fly decision making that a human has just yet. We'll worry about that when it gets there, I think.
yeah, I'm very much I'm actually leaning towards it may not even be possible. Like, machine learning is very, very good at learning to do tasks that are already known. But I think for the creativity side, you would need consciousness. You would have to figure out how to make a conscious machine.
I even read an article just the other day, it's been a week or so ago, about the founder from OpenAI saying they've reached the capabilities of what large language models like GPT can learn because they're at the limits of compute today.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that thing is still going. Like, the amount of I think I've read some estimates of the cost per query, and I think it was something like $3,000 per message. And I was like, how is that sustainable? Like, how do you fund that?
Yeah, that's why well, they do it because they have deep pockets and they're doing it in the venture capital approach, right? It's like, "Well, if we build this thing, people will pay for it later."
The Uber business model.
And it
Someday
is
this company
interesting.
will be profitable.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. That's becoming less popular, it seems, these days with the market being the way that it is. But it is interesting to see how many organizations are finding uses for large language models like that, and how many others are popping up. It's so funny that I say popping up, but there were a lot of other ones that were around even before or during GPT. But GPT caught the news headlines, and they've been riding that wave for a while. But it's certainly not new. It's not a new set of technologies. It's just kind of caught our interest as a society at large, in my opinion. But interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a go with Midjourney recently, and wow, like I'm not typically very impressed by AIs because it's just glorified Google at most of the in most cases. But this thing could just generate any image based on a prompt, and I was like, you know what, that is actually cool.
It's pretty amazing. I'd be really curious. Maybe you can talk about this on another show, but make it generate hands. If you want to see some uncanny valley views of things, or if you want to, I think that's a really great test for an AI generated image. Is if it's got a person in it, look at their hands, and they're always mangled and horrible to look at, and make you a little bit queasy. It's just nasty.
Did you see the one of, I think it was Will Smith eating spaghetti? Like
No.
The AI didn't know how people eat spaghetti, and you just gotta Google it. Just Google Will Smith eating spaghetti AI.
Oh, here's a good
Actually,
one from Instagram. What's your vision in AI pen testing combined with human pen testing?
hmm, I feel like pen testing is so like it's almost like a checklist, right? It's not There's not a huge amount of creativity in your average pen test, and I feel like you could do that without an AI. Like, a lot of it is scriptable, in fact.
I've heard of a number of people that I know that are in the pen test field, and they chafe a little bit at how many pen tests that they run into. Like they'll come into an engagement, and the company will go, "Oh, we've had pen tests before," and they get to looking at it, and literally it's just a vulnerability report. They did a vulnerability assessment, and they got a bunch of red and green lights, and red and green, here you go, and they move along. They didn't really pen test anything. So I think to your point, like for a lot of organizations, the bar is pretty low for what's a pen test, and I think that's really because the bar is pretty low for what, unfortunately, their security maturity looks like. Like, if I can go in and check for the top, 25 vulnerabilities, and I can find 20 of them, I don't necessarily have to go a whole lot further. I'm kinda done, engagement over. You've got so much low-hanging fruit, I don't need to progress from there. So I think to your point, like, AI is interesting, but I'm not sure what creative new problems the average pen test actually needs.
Yeah, I think if anything, it would be more of a red teaming thing than pen testing because I can definitely see some uses in red teaming. Like a lot of it is phishing, like Spearfish the CEO. If you could automate the lookup of personal information on each of the employees and personalize like a phishing law for each specific employee, I can see that being useful.
Yeah, I definitely can, and I know I don't have it here, but I have, recently I got somebody shared with me a GitHub project that was very much focused towards pen testing and leveraging. I'm not sure what AI model they were using, but they certainly were. So I think, to the question, there are people that are exploring that, and I'm sure there's some interesting work to be done. I'd be really curious as to, where in the average pen test that really kinda shows up. Probably not on your run of the mill vanilla pen
No.
test again, because they've got a playbook. They run in and they run it. They find enough stuff, and then they probably come back the next year and run the same playbook and find more of the same things. Um, but I
Yep,
think there's a place, right?
absolutely.
The bigger pen tests with bigger organizations that are paying you, just shy of a red team engagement, but wanting you to really do some damage. There may be something there.
Yep. So we have another question on here, which is it possible to land a remote cybersecurity job after becoming certified, or are they usually in office? I think it really depends on where you are in the world because there are I've seen a lot of remote jobs in the US. There's quite a few in the UK, but a lot of countries just don't seem to like remote. It's all very in office. I think definitely 100% in the US or UK, if you're certified or you have the skills, you don't need a degree, you don't really need any specific thing. It's just like a normal job.
Yeah, I think I would agree. It is really an interesting one to watch. My general leaning is that the offensive side is a little easier to get the remote work, than the defensive side. Like a lot of, especially for people getting started, like defenders, there's a good chance you're going to start in a SOC. A lot of organizations don't love that data getting out of their control. So you'll get stuck going into the SOC and running a 6 or an 8 hour shift. Who knows when? I do think it's changing, but there's an awful lot of discussion about that reversing too. There's a lot of salty CEOs that are demanding people go back into the office. So even the I don't want my data to leave my network is a little funny to me because organizations are happy to use an MSSP and to shuttle all that stuff up and send it out to somebody else completely. And I know some folks that have worked at MSSPs and they actually have a metric where they track the number of cross company disclosures where an agent responds to the wrong company with the wrong information. So it's an interesting one, but they're definitely out there. I would agree with that. I think they may be getting harder. Was my thought.
I
I
think
think it's
it's a
getting
yes and no. But yeah, like I think I've seen it a lot with specifically IR. They're like, we don't want any of our sensitive data leaving the organization. It's like, my guy, I think the horse has left the barn there. I think your data is already on the way to Russia.
Yeah, you wouldn't be calling IR if that wasn't the case. The other funny side about that is that, when you ask, okay, we're a national company. In the event of an incident, are you going to package up the IR team and fly them out to that location? Well, no, we've got to respond to the event right away. Okay, but I need to do so from the local office. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll
Actually,
drive in while the event is happening, and then we'll get that for you. It's funny.
I've actually seen that happen where they sent like the executive's private jet to go and pick up all of the IR consultants and bring them to the office.
What is the dwell time on that? Hours and hours and hours where they think something's happening and they haven't done much about it. It's
Yeah.
funny.
So I think we have another question here. The job market is getting tougher. Is it more valuable to get a grad degree or learn cyber skills on my own time?
I think that's a tough one. That's a loaded question. My personal opinion on this is that I don't mean to disparage degrees at all. I think they have a place and can be useful. Um, I think you really need to look into what's the cost of the thing. What do you expect the return of the thing to be? And to Marcus's point, like, do you even really need to have it? What is that grad degree going to do for you or allow you to do that you can't do today? I'd follow that up with the point of I personally believe you're a lot better off doing everything that you can to find a way and a place to get hands on doing something. And I know a lot of people in the space tend to say, well, I can't get a job because I don't have experience, and I don't have experience because I can't get a job. And I know that there's some truth to that reality. But I also know that if you're really interested and passionate about cybersecurity, there are a number of things you can do to get hands on that set you up in a really good position to go in front of an employer in an interview and talk about what you've learned in your own home environment about, hey, I had a Minecraft server in my home environment and I also had an elk stack. And boy, I tell you what, after Log4j blew up, you can't tell you how many scans I could see for people looking for the Log4j vulnerability. And this is what I did to go make sure that my home environments and my Minecraft server was mitigated against that and patched so that that wasn't an issue. And that matters a lot more, I think, than the opposite of that, where I've talked to a number of people that have, they got their undergrad in cybersecurity, they got immediately their master's in cybersecurity, and I ask them what technical roles they've ever had or ask them about a technical project they've been a part of, and they've got nothing. That's
Yeah.
not a great position to be in.
Speaking of Log4j, we were actually one of the ones doing the scans, and oh my god, I got the most unhinged email. This guy was like, "You're violating my constitutional rights by scanning the internet or something," and I was just like, I sent it to the like another employee, and we just laughed at it. Yeah. So to the degree part, I think it depends on where you're located. I've noticed European companies tend to lean more heavily on degrees, whereas in the US, you're 100% better to just have the skills because the degree does not guarantee you will have the skills to do the job. It will give you a piece of paper that says you have gone through the bare minimum training, but whether you're a right fit for the specific job you want is another question. So I've personally always gone for find what job it is you want to do and learn skills specific to that job because a cybersecurity degree is going to be very, very generic. It's not going to specialize on any certain part of the field. It's just going to be like a very broad bird's eye kind of view.
I do think it's interesting too. It's been a while back now, but I believe it was ISC squared in Britain, if I remember right, had gotten CISSP to be equivalent to a master's level degree over there. So maybe some interesting things moving there. It's not that CISSP is going to be easy to get. It's funny, like you couldn't really do that in lieu of a degree unless you had the 5 years experience that they require. So it's a little bit of a funny thing, right? You can get a degree without 5 years of experience, certainly. But I think it's a valid call out. Where you're at does seem to matter a fair bit.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I think related to that, we also have a question here. Which cybersecurity cert is best for a career changer?
My answer to that, Marcus, is probably going to be a little bit of a non-answer, and I'll apologize in advance for that. I think that's a hard question for me to answer without understanding what it is that you want to do. Where do you want to go? Like, I love to talk about somebody that I've interviewed previously a year or so ago that started her career as a librarian and is now in threat intel.
Is that
So
InfoSec Sherpa?
yeah,
Yeah, I know her. She's great.
she's super great, super sharp, and it's just so amazing. And it's a great example for people that are wanting to break into the field that you can bring your transferable skills to bear from lots of different places. Like just the way to talk with her about in library science, so much of it's about categorizing and cataloging information and making sense of it in a way that's easy to find later and referencing it. It's like, oh, that's threat intel. Like if you can do that well and have a smart system for doing that, you're going to be really well positioned to go into threat intel and do original research. Like it's just there's so many transferable skills there. So I think what certification you need really depends on where you want to go. I think we'd be happy to talk about that a number of different ways. You could get a hold of either Marcus or I, and to understand more. But I think generally you hear the same old tried and true tropes like Sec Plus is a good place to start. ISC squared has SSCP, which is also a decent place to start. There are a lot of them. I think to Marcus's earlier point, a good thing to do is to figure out what job you want and figure out what certifications they're asking for. Because it kind of doesn't matter what I think you should get. It matters what what the ATS and the hiring manager think you should have. So you can just check that off of their list and move on to the next thing. And I think certifications might get you the interview, but they're certainly not going to get you the job. So get the certification to get the interview and then go brush up on the technical skills and your ability to articulate how they apply to a business. And that'll help you get the job.
Yeah, I think you covered absolutely everything I want to say. And there's a little extra bit, which is check the job postings. Like that is just amazing advice because they will usually list the certs they want or the degrees they want or the skills they want. So you just have you just pick whatever job it is you want as cybersecurity, search for like some of the job postings for the top companies. And there you go. You've got your list of which certs are the most useful. So I think that's the perfect advice. I don't think I can do better than what you've already said.
Yeah, it's really funny, right? So, even if you're a defensive security person, take advantage and hack the system as best you can. Like the job post is public, surely. Like you know what the job's asking for, or you wouldn't be applying for it. And oh, by the way, go look at a number of others that have the same title or a similar title to see what they're asking for. And I think with a little bit of searching around some obviously public places, you can find out real quick what's going to get you past that initial ask and on to the conversation. And that's where the really challenging part begins to happen. So cross the cert off your list and move on to the things that really matter. And for an organization, I think it's not It's not the certification that matters. That's a baseline at best, or HR made me do it at worst. It's how you answer the questions and how you understand how cybersecurity fits for an organization. And if you really want to do your homework, do your homework. Learn about the company, what they do, who they're scared of, what threat actors they're worried about, what vulnerabilities they're concerned about, and then go into the interview with a strongly formed opinion about how an adversary might try to take those things from them and what you would do to protect them from that particular thing. And that's, I mean, honestly, I'm self-promoting here a little bit, but that's the reason that Cybrary built and that I pushed the content team. I can do that. It's our team. But the reason that we built our threat actor campaigns the way that we did was so people can come in and understand how an adversary is going to try to get and leverage and move their way through an environment. And it's so you can step into that interview in a really compelling way and say, "Hey, you're a healthcare organization. I know an adversary that you're probably concerned about, and I know the TTPs that they typically execute and the software that they're going to use to do it. And I've written some detection rules to help detect that." That's totally different than somebody that comes in with a certification and they ask, "Do you know what DNS is?" And they go, no,
Yeah,
you're done.
it's n I feel like I didn't do a degree, but I did do a security course, and what I learned in the security course and what pretty much any job in existence is gonna ask for were 2 separate things.
Yeah, completely. We try really hard over here to be steeped in what the industry is really going to want. And I know universities and things are trying to catch up and take that approach. And I applaud it. Like we certainly need anybody in the world that can train a competent cybersecurity person. We need them doing that because we need more people that are qualified to do the job without a doubt. But there's a divide there for sure.
Alright, I think that's all we've got time for today. Thanks for joining us on the Cybrary Intruder Alert podcast. Super great to have you here. We are
Thanks, Marcus.
We do like live stream on Instagram, I believe LinkedIn, and Twitch every other Wednesday. So if you want to hit a follow on the Cyber account for any of those platforms, you won't miss another episode, and you can also ask us questions in real time. And of course, if you're looking for free cybersecurity content, sign up to Cybrary.it.
And rest assured, I won't be on the show every week, so you'll be relieved of that.
I
Thanks so
think it
much,
was
Marcus.
I think it was great. I think we should have you on. All right, thanks everyone.
Happy to be on anytime. Bye all.